Greetings for those who are watching. It is me, the angry anime fan, the despair reviewer. Oh, and don't mind this tea. You see, last week ago, I finally, or I shouldn't say finally, but at long last, or no, that's still not the right word. Unfortunately, last week I got the COVID. Unless, of course, I said that in last video. I'm angry anime fan, the despair reviewer. Although technically I don't review so much things anymore. Mostly I just review Eden Zero, which this is the chapter right now. I'm finally feeling better, but there was something. I'm actually beginning to wonder if I'm actually gonna have a relapse pretty soon. Hopefully not, because I'm telling you one thing. A big duh, but not being able to exercise is the worst. And yes, I'm counting the fact that including not even being able to go to work is a punishment. But enough about me. We are here to talk about that chapter, aren't we? And in a way, you could call this a filler chapter or a setup chapter, as well as a chapter that implies some kind of despair, as well as a chapter of level sexual harassment. But most of all, and most importantly to me, a chapter that introduces the lovely, lovely Xiao Mei. At long last again. So, in this chapter, she summarizes, as she usually does, what has been going on, sort of, about the 3 years that they've been trying to attack Siggy. Having the connection of Captain Connor, now they know what they're going to do. And she also asks why she is in a bathing suit. Also, it's kind of ironic though the fact that she is actually swimming, even though, well, she is in space. But well, the ground you're walking on is very reminiscent of water. So they decide, and apparently one reason also they were in the Blue Garden, besides of course dumping Captain Connor and of course not doing that, because there was some way to have some maintenance. So they headed towards the planet Damilia in the Kaidi cosmos, where they can repair their large vessels, as well as a theme park for, well, or a theme, not theme park, a water park for entertainment. Couchpo of course goes to the food court, even though they're the water thing. While the rest of the gang enjoys it all. The one who enjoys it the most seems to be Pino, and that is very adorable. I miss that adorable side of her. And of course, and Shiki even throwing his friends moment of it all. But it's Captain Connor who's, well, drooling a little bit on the side of everyone else. It's also worth noting that Captain Connor has dark skin here. So maybe, or maybe appropriately more, I would say, he got tan skin. Wow, that was surprisingly fast. And you know, the biggest problem is that he talked about a daughter before, and I theorized it was Rebecca. Well, that is kind of creepy, if it was true, you know. Also, but strangely enough, he also pulled out some interesting things. The fact that he asks, since the Eden Zero has an ether drive, isn't it not capable of automatically refine ammunition? So why do they need to go to a repair shop? Hermitos says it's because they are not all powerful, and besides, the two Starshrine maidens do that for other things. Hermito for programming them, and of course, well, Sister for her pet sumo wrestler swimming him at all. And so they enjoy the water park, including big water springs of it all. Even Laguna adds some big additional water pumps of it all. Homura tries to exercise by sprinting against a strong stream, while Wise makes it a little bit stronger, but also to the point that her clothing get torn off, which is and also Rebecca and Shiki have some photo moments. Even one moment where Rebecca gives Shiki a kiss. So, but of course, even though they blush about it, they also still brush it off a little bit. so we're all gonna go together to Mother. Yeah, a little nice ship tease moment of it all. As we all know, they have been growing closer, and eventually a, a couple of it all. And now, actually, we're reintroduced to a character of these 3 years, and apparently these 3 years hasn't been really kind to her. In a way, you could actually call that karma. In the first universe, she suffered a pretty horrifying karma, a point where even I felt like, nah, that is a little bit too much. And in Universe 2, she suffered nothing, and she was even a little bit of a you know what in that moment. But in here, in 3, a very strange thing has been happening. You know, you could argue that maybe this is an alternate version of her, just like Connor. So maybe everything that she had in Universe 1 and 2 never happened here. In fact, even her design looks almost different, especially that she just cut her hair, but still holds one ponytail floating. Yes, it's Labilia, no longer called the super famous beekeeper, only the beekeeper, and she's being harassed by some guys who always who calls her a has-been. This seems to imply that this Labilia indeed has fallen. I mean, as I said before, she was a bully, and she was, well, not so very liked. I mean, people liked her video, they didn't like her. But they liked Rebecca, but didn't like her video. So, I mean, it is only logical that eventually she would fall from grace, because every star eventually falls. And just so you know, I'm not a star. I have already fallen. But even I have to say that even these guys are kind of slimebally. They're kind of much like these sexual harassment dirtbags. Always point to saying that, well, maybe you should strip for us. Of course, Shiki and Rebecca comes to her aid, and they both react kind of strange about seeing her. But then when they see that it's Rebecca, they just they call her a big influencer. But despite the fact that Shiki has pinned them down with gravity, they still throw this sexual harassment about this Rebecca strip show of it all. But before they can do that, they're actually being interrupted by a third member who arrives in a pretty scandalous swimsuit, I may add. Or maybe scandalous is the wrong word. A very revealing one. I can swear I've seen that kind of swimsuit before. Sometime in Fairy Tail. Can't remember which character though. Yes, it's the one who calls herself Holy, but then Thou, Holy, has entered the scene. And as soon as she tells them that she is the Oratians as Interstellar, the sexual harassment guy just decides to book it. Of course, Rebecca and Shiki are prepared to fight, but then Holy just stops and saying, I am not your enemy. Will you join forces with me? We can be friends. And the chapter, unfortunately, ends there. Next week's chapter is called Holy Judgment, so it may be an implication on what Holy is gonna do. A lot of people have been criticizing the Interstellar for not joining forces with Shiki of late. And I questioned myself if they would do that, but I also said that I don't believe they will join forces because they all have so black and white and mute. But Holy, I said in the last week's review that I didn't like Holy. She is, mostly because I find her very smugness. I do not trust her, and even these words and that face just looks like Shura for me. I cannot trust her. It's almost also the same as when, Amira got on Shiki's side. The fact that Shiki hasn't dropped this "let us be friends" is pretty refreshing. Because again, it reminds me that, yes, Shiki has become more serious, but he's still the Shiki we all have loved and loved. Because he's meant to be that way. But the bigger question, though, is why would Holy want to team up with Shiki? I mean, we can all agree that they should team up with Shiki. After all, Shiki is a good guy. But Shiki is a Galactica. She is an Interstellar. Now, I don't think they would willingly team up with a Galactica. Unless, of course, there's some kind of backstabbing moment. Next week's chapter is called Holy Judgment, and her name is name is Holy. So this may very well be Shiki saying no, and they will repeat the judgment. But they're in a public pool. Ugh. You know, you really shouldn't try to do all that in moment that. But she found them surprisingly quickly, I have to say. Makes me wonder how she did that. But as Feather said last time, she had access to information that no one else was supposed to have. So yeah, this Holy is already shaping up to be a very dangerous member of the Interstellar. What is her motives? Is she genuinely want to team up with Shiki because she realizes that Siggy is the bigger trouble and not Shiki? Is this a manipulational tool? Or is this all part of her holy judgment game? I don't know. All in all, this is. I think we could just call this a fan service filler chapter. I mean, yes, Labia was there. Her falling from grace is surprisingly sympathetic, in a way. But she looks like a completely new person now that she has cut her hair and only has one ponytail at all. I almost didn't recognize her. But her being harassed by these guys as perhaps also to give us a little bit more sign just how much sympathy he has. But granted, they were drooling over Rebecca and Holy too, so these were just some idiots. Some perverted idiots. So, what else is there to say about this chapter? Yeah, maybe not nothing. It's a longer review than it actually had to be. It's the ending that it's more interesting. But you give me your thoughts if you have any.